Going back here looking, I didn't realize Gale Sayers played for the University of Kansas. The Kansas Comet, he was known as. Maybe the greatest Kansas Jayhawk football player of all time. I don't know. Let's ask Bill King, joining us from Nashville Sports Radio. Bill, you remember watching Gale play? Did you get a chance to see him play during his time?
No. In the 70s, though, the movie that came out, Brian's Song, was a very famous movie about him and a guy named Brian Piccolo that were rookies together in the NFL, and Piccolo died of cancer. But if you've ever seen the movie, it's a 70s movie, and sad movie, actually. But really now, Gale Sayers, I'll give you a little local trivia, not that you guys are in the 615, but for a brief amount of time, he was the AD, Gale Sayers, at Tennessee State University in Nashville.
Really? Huh.
Yep.
No kidding. That's interesting. I had no idea about that. We were just talking a little bit about Sayers throughout the show today, and then the other thing that hit me, and I wanted to ask you about this too, because I love the stories of weird injuries. Although this deal with Tyrique Taylor, the punctured lung administered by the team doctor, man, I couldn't imagine anything more painful than that. Or can you imagine the team doctor? Oops. Have you ever? That's one of the stranger injuries I've heard of before.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I just reading about that a little early. Yeah, I mean, so friendly fire there, or friendly doctor, and you're out for, what'd they say, the year? He's done for the year, I guess, because of this. So I'll tell you this. I've seen somebody have their lungs reinflated, and that is, you're talking about painful just to sit there and watch, where they literally stick a contraption in between your bones there, and they pump you back up. That's some strange and scary stuff.
Yeah. We did get a chance to watch Justin Herbert, though, make that NFL debut. Kid looked pretty good. I mean, I don't know if we thought he would see him play that early, but looks like could be the real deal for the Chargers. All right, so let's get into this weekend of the SEC. Yeah. So we got Arkansas, Georgia. The lines move towards Georgia. I don't think there's any surprise there. Minus 26. It's going to be tough for Arkansas to hang with this team. I believe they can stay within 26. I think they can make it a tight-ish game for the first half, but there's just a lot too much depth on Georgia on either side. What are you expecting to see this Saturday? You think it's going to be ugly like everybody else does? You think that there's a chance this could be tight?
Well, here's the one thing to circle. It depends on where Georgia's offense is. If they're sluggish, then it might look tight for a while until they get going. That's possible. If they're in sync, then it's gone. It's done. I don't think it gets to halftime if they're in sync. And I'm assuming they start with DeJuan Mathis at quarterback. JT Daniels, even if he gets cleared right before the game, I don't know how much prepping he's doing with the ones. I don't know what they've been able to game plan there. Maybe they have. But I'm just guessing that DeJuan Mathis struts out there first, and we'll see what happens from there, guys.
I saw the news out of South Carolina, a name that Arkansas fans will remember from the past 2 years, is now a starting quarterback in the SEC, Colin Hill, who'd been at Colorado State the previous 2 years under Brad Bobo. Of course, now he's the offensive coordinator under Will Muschamp, and unseats Ryan Helinski. Was that a surprise, or did you maybe see this coming with Bobo coming over and bringing his quarterback too?
Yeah, just because of the relationship there, I guess it's not a surprise. And Bobo, I mean, I've known Mike Bobo. I remember him. He played in the mid-'90s, played in a really famous game in Neyland Stadium against Peyton Manning, a game that Georgia actually should have won. And he's a good coordinator. He was a good coordinator at Georgia here more recently before Colorado State. And that's an interesting quarterback elevation. Now, again, they don't have to stick with that if they're ineffective. And you got to remember Tennessee's trotting out Jarrett Guarantano, who's anything but consistent. So we'll see how that goes.
Is this, we might have asked you this before, and I know you've talked about the idea that this season, because of finances and everything else that's going on here, that there might not really be a hot seat for coaches. But what about Muschamp at South Carolina? What is this, year 5, year 6? Still waiting for that breakthrough? Would he be the lone hot seat coach perhaps this year in the SEC?
If it falls to pieces, yes. I still don't know what the climate would be there. They owe him a lot of money. And I don't know. Let's say they go 3-7. They got a tough schedule, as they always do. And then I guess the relief package there at the end is you don't get killed by Clemson this year on the schedule, which would really do it. I just don't think there's much of a mood for that. Now, I guess it could just get so bad you don't have a choice. But do you imagine being an AD and going to your president and or chancellor saying, okay, we owe him $15 million. And then we owe another X amount of millions to the assistants, and the new guy is going to cost 5 years, $30 million. And we need his assistants too, and he's probably going to want his own strength guy. I just don't know if you're going to be able to go sell that, no matter how bad the football field looks.
Speaking of Bill King here on halftime, Bill, let's look all around the SEC. What's the game of the week this week in Bill King's mind?
There's not one that stands out. I think the Tennessee-South Carolina game, just because if Tennessee loses, I think they're not going to get perhaps where they want in year 3, which would be a 6-4. 6-4 would be really good with their schedule this year and with the additions to the schedule. Some are pointing to the Auburn game. And, Auburn doesn't need to be losing that game. And Kentucky's solid. Kentucky's getting about 8, 9, 10 points somewhere in there. I haven't looked today. I would say those. I really want to see Mac Jones at quarterback for Alabama. I'm not a huge believer there. And I want to see what Georgia does at quarterback, too. To me, those are the two biggest, how the quarterbacks play. Those are the two biggest notes. And then LSU, as we've discussed ad nauseum, guys, they've lost so much. They get Mississippi State. They get K.J. Costello, who is a Stanford transfer, at quarterback. How's LSU going to look? And they're saying everybody's kind of making too much of all these losses that they incurred. They say their defense is even better than it was a year ago. I think that's interesting too.
You bring up Auburn in the Kentucky game, which I think will be that. A lot of the people are kind of looking forward to this one. I think a lot of Arkansas fans are just because they want to see Chad Morris fail at Auburn. But I'll put it like this. What's the vibe going to be around Auburn with Gus Malzahn, Chad Morris, if they were to fall to Kentucky?
No. Ugly. And what if it looks like Gus historically always looks like he won't let his coordinators be coordinators? If that drum beat gets loud again, it's going to be funny. It's going to be interesting. To say the least, because Chad Morris, I know a lot of people might not like him over there, but he's an excellent offensive mind. And if they leave him alone, I think they'll be in pretty good shape this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Go ahead, Phil. I tend to agree with what you're saying, though, Bill. He is a good offensive mind. I feel like, though, a lot of our listeners
the rest of the stuff remains to be seen, right?
Yeah.
Phil, let me ask you this. Who do you think would be more difficult to work under as an offensive coordinator? Would it be Gus? Would it be the Mad Professor, the Pirate, Mike Leach, or would it be Nick Saban? Who do you think's tougher to work for as a coordinator, as an offensive coordinator specifically?
Well, I don't think Leach would be at all because he's calling everything. I mean, that's understood up front. So he's the offensive coordinator and the head coach. Boy, I would think Saban, even if you're successful, he's such a. And when I say control freak, that's not necessarily negative, but again, that's his style. I mean, think about all the butt chewing she took that Lane Kiffin took. And Lane did, other than the Washington job where he wasn't coherent enough, the Washington game, the semifinal game where he wasn't really coherent enough to coach, really foolish day for him there. But he took all kinds of butt chewings, and he did a very good job at Alabama. You're going to get it from him. You just have to go in there and know it's going to be like when you're a kid and your dad was disciplining you. That's the way your life's going to be. So I would say safe.
Bill, you're on Twitter. I don't know. Did you see the picture of Lane Kiffin last night? Looked like a selfie from right in the town square in Oxford. Looks like he's put on 25 pounds.
He's not hungry, is he? His belly's full. I don't think I saw that. I'll look that up. But he, you know what? They've got some. I don't think they beat Florida, and I prefer John Rice Plumlee at quarterback. They're going to start Matt Corral apparently, but they've got a little bit of offensive talent. If again, using that term sluggish, if Florida comes out sluggish, maybe that's a game for a half or so. But yeah, the Lane train's doing okay.
Let me just tell you this, though, Bill, and you probably know this. Whenever the game is, when it's Arkansas Ole Miss, bet the over. That's a guarantee. That would be my cold hard lock for the entire season. The over on Arkansas Ole Miss.
Doesn't even matter what the number is. Just do it.
Bill, let me ask you one thing real quick, Bill, before we let you go here.
Okay.
When it's all said and done, Arkansas and Georgia, I think we all know how this game probably will turn out. What would be in your mind, and what would you classify as a successful first game for Sam Pittman? Is it just being competitive? Like, what would quantify success in your mind for Sam Pittman in game one?
You don't look sloppy, and the reason why you got beat is they got better players, and there's nothing you can do about that today. You can go recruit, but, on the field today, that's not your fault. You played hard, you were physical, you fought, and they beat you fair and square, and you didn't turn it over. They did not get numbers on you because you're sloppy. To me, that would be a good day.
I think most fans here in Arkansas would agree with you. Bill, enjoy the first SEC weekend
guys.
of the year.
Thank you.
Looking forward to talking about it next
Thanks,
week. Bill King,
Okay.
Nashville Sports Radio, with us every Wednesday, and always appreciate his time. Don't forget, look up at Ouachita Farms, ouachitafarms.com, a licensed cannabis farm processor and seed labeler right there in Hot Springs Village. They make CBD products that are sold all across Arkansas at over 200 locations. This is natural, no additive made, 100% USA grown hemp. Small batches, lab results are verified and published right there at ouachitafarms.com. Owned by the Owens brothers, David, Jeff, Mark, and Mitchell, all born and raised in Hot Springs. Go to ouachitafarms.com. You can also stop by at their tasting room for a sample right at Hot Springs Village at Highway 7 North. Make sure you use the code WPS15 at checkout at ouachitafarms.com. Back after the break, cherry on the top, change my mind.